Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Andrew Iarocci. I manage the special events here at the Whaling Museum. I want to welcome you all to our Cook Memorial Theater. Thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you to Jean and her team for putting this together. We're very excited to host you, and I hope this is a very informative and helpful night for everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Yes, the Whaling Museum has been very, very welcoming, and we are very grateful to everyone for that. I do see some great city employees here. I see Jen and Ann. Are there any elected officials here that I missed? Okay, without further ado, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce to you the MBTA's General Manager, Phil Eng.
Thank you very much, everyone, and it's us who should be applauding you for taking time out of your busy day for being here. And we know how important this is to everybody. The Southcoast Rail project is one that's not only important to the MBTA to be able to provide mass transportation services to communities that have long awaited it, but it's also an opportunity for us to be able to support the economy, economic development, and all of the things that make living in Massachusetts so great. And one of the things that we've really focused on is making sure, as we take a look at how we deliver projects, how we manage projects with the new leadership team that I have here today, is how do we really be more transparent. And I know one of the things is we've not had a lot of details as of recent. My management team, not only Gene Fox, who everyone knows, but Brian Coholan, Chief Operating Officer, Sam Zhao, who's Head of Capital Delivery, my Chief Engineer, but also Karen Anton, who is the newly appointed project manager for the Southcoast Rail, and we'll talk into that on some of these changes. But one of the things that we focused on is not only to deliver projects, but to make sure when we deliver them, we're doing it in a manner that ensures the service is reliable, that we're following all the safety regulations, and in this case, federal railroad regulations that need to be applied. But we want to make sure that when we turn it into turn on service, that we are turning it on in a fashion that's uninterrupted and done in a fashion that the public knows is safe, reliable, and robust. So one of the things that, as we've dove through the schedule earlier this year, the project team had come to me, and we were getting updates on a regular basis. And with the new team that I have here, identified some areas that we saw were not exactly where the schedule showed, and that there were areas that we saw that the schedule was slipping. And one of the things that tied to that is that we're moving from civil construction to operating, turning the system over to the railroad operation folks, but also the signaling and the testing and commissioning of the signaling system. And some of the things that you'll hear Karen talk about a little bit is the automatic train control, positive train control. And those are key features to safe railroad operations. Automatic train control controls the speeds. Positive train control is another layer of safety on top of that, that ensures that when the trains are operating, trains are communicating with one another, they're communicating with wayside devices, and all of those features ensure that we can avoid train collisions. So those key things are the part of what we will be talking about. One of the things that is also key is the safety certification of the work that we've been doing. And that has to do with reviewing all of the track that's been installed, all the signals have been installed, and working with FRA to allow training and testing on our system. What you may have seen recently is test trains, the mass coastal trains that we borrowed, operating through our system at 25 miles an hour. And because of the freight system, people are accustomed to that. What we wanted to do today is talk about the next phase of the testing. Beginning Monday, June 17th, we'll be running test trains with MBTA commuter trains. And the difference between what you've seen to date and what you'll see moving forward is those test trains will be moving initially at 25 miles an hour. They will advance to 45 miles an hour, but they will also be tested at maximum speeds up to 79 miles an hour. And we want to talk about the importance of safety around our system, safety of the grade crossings as we do that testing, because this is something new that the folks will be seeing. And that testing will be taking place beginning Monday through the end of the year and early into January of 2025. But that is a key piece to ensuring that when we turn on the system, for passenger service, which we anticipate is approximately 90 days later in the spring of 2025, we can do it in a safe manner. And we'll walk through, everybody, the reasons behind the testing and all of the features and the timeline of why it's required to be able to do that. This is a new start process that requires FRA oversight, and it's a key thing that we need to make sure that not only is it safe for the riders that we carry, the communities that we travel through, but also our operators. It is really important piece to ensuring safe service moving forward. So I think with that, I'm going to ask Karen Anton to step up and walk you through what we've done on this project to date and where we're going, and we'll be able to, at the end, answer some questions.
Thank you, Phil. Good evening, everybody. You hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, good. I wanted to start, of course, where we always start, which is the scope of the project. So, scope of the project, right? 37 miles of track, 6 new stations, and 2 layover facilities, all here in the Southcoast area. So, when Phil asked me to take a look at the project and assess where we are, what's been done, and what had yet to be done, and then how to get it done, that's really what we've been doing for the last couple of months. We've had a lot of questions about why it's taken us so long to come out and provide some information, and I like to say if I don't have anything to say, then I don't say anything at all until I do. So the assessment's done. We have a plan for how to go forward. We know what work needs to be done, and we've decided how we're going to do it and when we're going to do it. So we want to share that with you tonight. We'll start with the stations. As Phil indicated, the first few years of the project really has been dedicated toward building the system. So stations, layover facilities have been under construction for the last several years, and our 4 of those stations, Fall River, Freetown, Middleborough, and Church Street, are completed. The other 2 are substantially complete or nearing completion. New Bedford is 97% complete. We again expect that to be finished in July of 2024, which would be next month. East Taunton is about 75% complete, and we're expecting that to be completed in August. The 2 facilities, the laydown areas are scheduled for September. So all of the facilities in the next couple of months will be absolutely complete and ready to go. And the civil work will be virtually done on the project. So let's turn our attention then to the most, now that we're moving from the civil work, the next part of the project is really track and signals. So start with the track. The track, first of all, both the track and the signals need to be safety certified by the FRA, which is required in order to increase the speeds for commuter rail operations. Today, you have trains are operating, freight trains, at under 30 miles an hour. In order for passenger trains to operate at up to 79 miles an hour, the track needs to be recertified by the FRA from a Class 2 to a Class 5. There's a process for that. There's work that needs to be done. There's federal inspections that need to take place. MBTA has a safety certification process. We went through that safety certification process, and the track, all 37 miles of it, have been certified by the FRA as safe and having passed those requirements, rigorous inspections to ensure that there's no defects and the track's ready for revenue service. We're then able to submit that to the FRA, and just this week we received approval from the FRA to operate trains at 79 miles an hour on our track. It's a major accomplishment. Everybody wants to know when passenger service is going to come, so do we. We want it to happen very, very badly. But there's a process, and there are key milestones. This is one, and it's an important accomplishment. So now we can go on and we can continue to test the signal systems, not just at the slower speeds, which is what we've been doing, but at the higher speeds, which is necessary in order for us to operate passenger service. So as Phil mentioned, our signal system really has 2 components, ATC and PTC. ATC really is all about what you see along the wayside in terms of the signals. There's also equipment in the cab, and it really controls the speed of the train. PTC is a system that monitors all of the train's movements, knows what's supposed to happen, and if the engineer doesn't operate the train properly, the PTC system will step in and slow down and ultimately stop the train, so that there cannot be train-to-train collisions. There can't be entry into a work zone where workers are working. These are federal requirements for the PTC system. So in the last several years, the MBTA has put the ATC and PTC systems on all 400 miles of its railroad. And the FRA safety certified our systems as safe in 2020, August of 2020. One of the first transportation authorities, railroads in the country to accomplish that objective. So we're going to use the same methods, practices, and procedures that were successful in the deployment of this technology, this signal system technology, on the 400 miles, on all 37 miles that is the South Coast Rail miles. So we know it works. The process, the procedures, the means and the methods, we know it works. We're going to use them, and the FRA, more importantly, knows it works because they've certified us using these processes and procedures once before. When you test it, sequence. First you do ATC, then you do the crossings, then you do the PTC. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about all of it. For ATC, what have we accomplished? The signal system is installed on all 3 lines and is fully functional. The testing has been completed there are 26 signaled crossings on the railroad, and they have all been tested at 25 miles an hour. And when you test a crossing, you bring in a train across the crossing, there's a series of tests that have to go on to activate the gates, make sure they activate in time, make sure they don't stay down too long, or that they don't activate in time to get the gates down before the traffic, to get the traffic time. All of this is part of the process. You have to test it in both directions and every route on that crossing. So that's all been done at 25 miles an hour. Now, since this week, the FRA approved our tracks to operate at 79 miles an hour. We got to go back around to all 26 of those crossings, and we have to retest them. 25 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour, and the maximum authorized speed, which can be up to 79 miles an hour, different maximum speeds at different crossings. Okay? So we're going to be doing that. We're starting on Monday. Just as the general manager indicated, instead of using freight trains to do this, we're going to be using commuter rail trains because, of course, we're going to be increasing the speeds up to the maximum authorized speed. So we're going to start that on Monday, and we expect that that'll be done by the end of July. Take about 6 weeks. Again, another major milestone. Now we will have had our ATC signal system safety certified, and we can put it in operation. So in August, we're going to transfer the dispatch, which is the folks that work in the control center and line the trains and do the routes for the trains. We're going to transfer that to Keola's, which is MBTA's operator. Okay? That'll allow us to do the PTC testing with multiple trains at all different speeds. So that's going to happen in the beginning of August, and then we'll get on to the PTC testing. So again, all of the PTC equipment has been installed and tested. The Operations Control Center in Boston has been upgraded to include the South Coast Rail territory as part of that system. And preliminary train testing that tested the existing system above Middleborough to the new South Coast Rail was done about a month ago. We had a 9-day outage and tested that interface to make sure you could go from the north to the south, from the old system to the new system, and all of the activities there successfully passed. So what's next? The FRA requires train testing of all the PTC functions on all the rail lines. There are about 800 different functions that have to be successfully tested using what are FRA-approved test procedures. We're going to use the same test procedures we used on the other 400 miles of railroad. So we're going to start that in June with 1 train. In July, we're going to go to 2 trains. By the time, it'll take all the rest of this year and into January of next year to finish this work. And that's consistent with the periods of time it took us to do the testing on the other 400 miles. So for these 37 miles, it's going to take about that amount of time. Okay, so where will we be then? We'll have a certified track. We'll have a FRA certified ATC signal system and PTC signal system. And so we're very much ready to go. So what do we have to do next? There is a process that FRA has called a new starts process. That new starts process it's long and it's onerous, it's in progress, and it has been. But when we get to this place where we have a signal system and track that's been certified and ready to go, you enter what's called the new starts phase, the final phase. They're going to come in and conduct their own inspections, and they're going to witness simulated service. So we're going to run the trains, and they're going to see testing and witness that testing for themselves. When it's all said and done, and they're satisfied that the system is ready for passenger service, they'll conduct a revenue service, they will have us conduct a revenue service demonstration test. What that means is we run the service. There's no passengers on the train, but the train runs the schedule that you would see in your hand. Start in the morning, go all the way, stop at all the stations, run down the line, run all the way back up. And we have to do this for a number of days. We're still now negotiating with FRA in terms of what the length of that test looks like. But this whole new starts process, once we get to January and we've finished the testing of the signal system, takes about 90 days. So I brought a schedule. I know we've talked about a lot of dates and everybody's interested in the schedule, so we brought one. And, oh, wait, I'm forgetting something. I did this the last time. Service preparations. So just in case you're skeptical that we're actually going to go into revenue service, we have done service preparations, okay? We have 4 locomotives that have gone through extensive overhaul and preparation for the service. We bought 16 new bi-level coaches that are ready to go. And we have staff that have to be hired, the operations department. They're long lead time because they're specialized and they need special training. So you have trained dispatchers, trained staff, infrastructure maintenance and mechanical, and you can see that a lot of people have been hired and a lot of people have been trained and they're getting ready to go. Okay? So a lot of preparation done, not just in terms of the project and the build out and the track and the signal system, but also on the operating side in terms of vehicles and people to actually operate the system. Okay, so here's the schedule. You can see complete the track and certification. As I mentioned, we just finished that in June. We have start the test trains on the 17th. Everybody always takes pictures. I feel like a rock star. So I just want to say that we are going to put this presentation on the website, and you'll be able to get it, I promise. So we're going to start the test trains on June 17th. The signal testing has already started, as I indicated, and is going to run through the end of January. Keola's dispatching is going to start right at the beginning of August. We're going to complete the stations and the layover facilities at the end of September and start Keola's operations at the end of January. So at that point, we'll enter our 90 days with the FRA of the new starts process. And as Phil indicated, we're planning a spring launch for passenger service. Okay? I think we have an opportunity to talk about fares.
Sure.
I'll give this to you.
Thank you, Karen. So one of the other things that we've heard at previous meetings is what is the fare structure. Our team did review the opportunities for what is an appropriate fares, and looking at the distance base, comparing it to other stations. Some were clearly Zone 8, and some were on the borderline of Zone 8 and Zone 9. We thought it appropriate, given the importance of affordability, is to make sure that we just keep all of these stations in the Southcoast Rail territory at Zone 8. And the other key component is, we're excited a few months ago, our board voted on low-income fares. That is an opportunity for folks that need extra assistance to be able to apply for and be able to pay, not only on the commuter rail here on Southcoast Rail, but all of our systems, 50%. So in this case, that fare would be $6. And we'll be back with future meetings to discuss that process, but also to talk about the whole schedule that Karen just went through. One of the things that we do want everyone to know is that we felt it important to come here, myself included, to talk to you face to face. I intend to come back with the team as we hit key milestones to be able to give everyone the updates that you deserve. But the fare structure, we had heard, and we wanted everyone to know that it is Zone 8. And again, you know, we are trying to, as best as we can every time we come here, to provide the information that you need. The other key piece, and the reason that this meeting came about so quickly, is with the testing that is going to occur and the trains that are occurring, that'll be running on the system starting Monday, we wanted to really talk about the importance of safety in or around the system. This is something new where these trains will be running at faster speeds than you've seen the freight before. And we will be not only testing the gates and testing trains, and as Karen said, they will be going through these crossings multiple times back and forth, and they'll be going through frequently. We will have staff on those cross sections to make sure that it's all being monitored and done safely. But what we also want people to know is that grade crossing safety is of paramount importance. And we've seen areas where it's important for us to come out and really just talk about grade crossing safety, not only for vehicles, but also for pedestrians, particularly when you could possibly have two-way directional traffic of trains as well. All of these things are new, and at 79 miles an hour, those trains, while they seem far off in a distance, approach very quickly, and it's very important for that. We're going to continue that, that effort to talk about grade crossing safety moving forward. Next, just a lot of other key components as we get into train service. Again, these are all things that we want to talk about. Never walk on tracks, never play in or around tracks, don't walk dogs, don't ride your bikes. These are all just areas that, unless you are trained and certified to be on our right-of-way, we're going to continue to stress that message that it's just not safe to be in these areas. And we've seen, unfortunately, too many instances where folks don't realize those safety concerns. So we're going to do that. We're going to tell folks and we're going to remind folks that not only are the trains coming, but the importance of safety now that we have this. And of course, just staying alert and being aware of your environment as you're doing it. Our stations, our entryway to the mass transportation system is the gateway to our system, and those stations are the gateway to your communities, and we want to make sure people feel safe. So with that, let me see. I think we want to just take questions and answers and give you an opportunity to tell us what's on your mind. I see a hand right there.
You're talking about getting safety awareness out to the community and different people. There's maybe 50 people here. How are you getting that message out to the greater community? Are you going into the schools and doing talks, demonstrations, stuff like that? Because this is a very small majority of the public that's here listening to or talk about safety right now.
Yes, in a lot of the communities that we already have service, we do outreach in the schools, we do outreach at community meetings. And one of the things as we move forward is to start having those conversations with all of those, particularly at the earlier ages. That's when people are making decisions on what's right and what's wrong. So that is a key piece. We also, in and about the stations, have track safety where we will come in with staff, with police, and really just engage with the community as they're using our system. So all of these things will be tied, public service announcements, and then messaging with regards to that. So yes, and then we'll work with the local elected officials to help disseminate that information as well. So there's a whole number of venues that we use, but including the, as you say, going out to schools and talking to students.
I would just add that we have been doing that, and we've been to a couple of schools here. We have all these materials online, and we are working very closely with Operation Lifesaver, which is the group that goes into the schools. And actually next week having a meeting to try to coordinate that, because some districts have been easier to get into than others, obviously. We also, on our website, have a whole menu of safety items, including age-appropriate videos. So we have one for elementary kids, one for middle school, one for high, and then one for general public. They're short, but they absolutely have the messaging. We've shared that with cable in the 3 cities, and we'll continue to outreach, as Phil has said, as we get closer to revenue service. But thank you for that question.
Other questions?
That sounds good. School is ending in a couple of days. Today is Thursday. I don't know if you're going into a school tomorrow, but then how are you going to reach even older folks?
We've actually had some community meetings, and we'll continue to do that outreach so that we reach all of it. You're right, we could go to senior centers and things like that, so we'll have continued outreach. The schools, you have to get on the calendar early, so we're looking at the fall. Also, simple things like just being in a school building with an Operation Lifesaver and MBTA Safety First table, so you can distribute the information. It gives you a lot of mileage.
It really is building off an ongoing safety program that we have, throughout our system. A lot of messages are public service messages, and they're not just targeted to one community, they're targeted across all the communities. So this is building on, but a lot of this now is getting into the local communities now that this service is coming in the future, very soon.
And who's your director of TikTok technology? Because not everybody goes to a website or an email. You've obviously got to have social media media outreaches as well?
We have, part of the reorganization is a head of communications, but also reorganizing a person in charge of customer and employee experience. My head of communications is Gabrielle Mondestin. She is in the back there. My head of customer and employee experience is Danny Levy, and she has a very engaged team with regards to whether it's social media, but also advertising, public service announcements, and those different components of how we connect with the public, but also you know, the folks that we're trying to target with regards to these messages.
I was hoping you would say something about the projected schedule. How many trains are perhaps anticipated, how long it will take, will there be any expresses, or is everyone going to make all those stops on the Middleborough-Lakeville line? I don't know where you'd go 79 miles an hour on that schedule.
Well, I will ask Ryan to talk a little bit. We've heard a little bit about the schedule at the earlier meeting. We discussed coming back with a more definitive schedule at the next meeting, but let Ryan talk a little bit where we are with developing a schedule.
Thank you, Phil. So to answer your question, of course, the Southcoast Rail Territory, it has to feed into existing services, so the existing Middleborough service, the existing Kingston service, and the existing Greenbush service. So to marry all of those services together, to not impact the existing service, but to provide good service to the Southcoast community, that takes a very delicate balancing act. I can tell you that the initial commitments for the project were 26 trips per day. I can commit that the team is going to do better than that with the infrastructure that we have to work with. As far as travel time, you asked about that. It's approximately 90 minutes from the endpoints from New Bedford or Fall River into South Station, Boston. And again, we have to share a lot of existing constrained rights of way. But it's a matter of optimizing the schedule to really strike the balance between services that exist today and, again, how to deliver the best service we can to the South Coast communities.
Weekends?
Yes, weekend schedules are part of everything that we're reviewing right now.
And just to add, one of the things after we launch the initial schedule, just as we do on the rest of our territory, we'll be monitoring ridership, we'll be monitoring patterns, and we'll be adjusting service as we see fit based on are people traveling all the way into Boston and all the way from Boston, or are people riding from one zone to a different zone. Those are important components on how we provide the level of service, but we have seen across our system how having reliable service, on-time performance, and sufficient service drives ridership. You know, the commuter rail at the MBTA actually has not only the strongest return to ridership of all of our modes, but also has the strongest return to ridership across the country on commuter rails. So we're really proud of that, and this South Coast Rail, we're anticipating that and hoping that a lot of folks use mass transportation. We want people to get out of their cars and use our system.
I have a couple. Sorry.
Communication is mentioned, social media came up, but you say you have a website and it maybe have plenty of safety information on it. It has very little other information on it. I couldn't find this meeting on it, for example. And I mean, you can't be held responsible for failures of past people running this, but so we're hearing tonight that we're 18 months behind, and obviously nothing definitive could be said until, as you put it, you can't say anything until you've finished assessing it. Well, you can say you're assessing it. That seems like a reasonable kind of communication to spread, and we know that hearing from what's been reported from elected officials and the like, they've heard nothing either. So a year's testing, essentially, from now. We're not halfway through June, and you're talking about May to finishing. So if FRA testing and the like takes a year, this isn't coming as a surprise to you. And even if you didn't necessarily expect it to take the whole year, you could have given some kind of intimation of how long the whole process is going to be. How are you going to begin to talk to people so that there's information that they can understand and use. People have to plan on their stuff. Jobs you can or may not be able to take because there's you don't know when the train will start. That's just one example, but there's many. I could go on, but I won't.
No, fair point. Early spring of this year, as we were getting updates from the former project management team, there were things that this new team, Ryan and others that I brought on board, Sam Zhao, identified that the schedule that we had announced the year before was slipping. And one of the things is that we needed to dive into what was occurring and why that was occurring. Ultimately, we made the decision to change the leadership of the team. That's why Karen is here. Karen has been instrumental working with Ryan directly on the successful implementation of automatic train control, positive train control on the rest of the system, as they've mentioned. We made that change. I believe we messaged, and maybe we could always message better. I know communication is the heart of success, and also the frustrations of folks when there's not enough information. But I did want to give Karen the chance to dive into all of these different aspects of the project before we came out and shared partial information. My concern with partial information is I did not have accurate schedule at the time when I made the change for Karen. And I think one of the things is that it was known that the project had been delayed, but we didn't know exactly how long it would be delayed. Over the course of Karen's review, we had multiple schedules we had schedules that were further out. We went back with the project team just to be upfront. We had the contractor come in, we had the subcontractors come in, and went through different phases. Sam Zhao, Karen, Ryan, they all visited the different sites to see personally, all those huts, do they have equipment in the huts? Are the tracks done? Are the stations done? And little by little, we found areas where we needed to make sure was on the schedule that we showed, right? That's why we're able to come here definitively today. And not only did we want to put a schedule, but we put milestones on the schedule. We put key dates that we think are important to success. Something else, as we move forward, we have every intention of continuing to try to accelerate the schedule, even though this is the schedule we're showing. That we can't promise, but we have intending to come back on a regular basis. It'll be on our websites as well, where we could come back and give updates in person. And I intend to join the team as well with those updates in person. We're going to be coming and visiting the project sites. Some of the other things, not just on this project, small projects, all projects, I've insisted on my new team to be out on the project sites, to be visiting the project sites, and to be able to have that open dialogue internally so we can better communicate it externally. And that's not just here, but it's on other projects. And as we go through every single one of them, we're going to find ways that we need to stress to the staff, you have to share information with us so we can help you solve them, and then we can deliver those projects more timely. I understand how communication can be frustrating, and we're working on that, sir.
I also agree with the gentleman that the communication level needs to be somewhat augmented. Well, my questions pertain basically to fares. I see that the fare is a zone 8, and I love that. I also would like to know if the parking facility will have the same rate as it does in other facilities throughout the Commonwealth.
I believe that's the anticipation, that the parking rates will be very similar to every other lot.
Okay, good. My other question is, for those people, and it was brought up by someone on the other side of the house about not having access to or not using a cell phone or a smartphone, not having that advanced technology through their golden years, is the MBTA considering making a Charlie card, sort of like for commuter rail? I know the Charlie card had come into effect when the token system went away. And I'm wondering if the only way to get your ticket will be online or with your phone, or will it be some sort of card, like I said, or punch pass that you could use and have your ticket procured in advance and anything other than the phone, or store your money in that pass?
Yes. So what we have right now that's ongoing is what we call automated fare collection 2.0. That is the new technology that is being currently installed on our subways and on our buses. If you ride any of those, you can see these readers. Now that is contactless technology. And I know you asked the question about if you don't have a phone, but just let me explain that that technology will allow folks who don't have a Charlie card to pay using Apple Pay, Google Pay, smartwatches, and you don't even need an account. You could just pay with those devices, or you can set up an account where that will have secure processing and accounting of your rides. But if you don't have a smartphone or smartwatch, you could also just tap a contactless card on those devices. Now, the launch later this year is subways and buses. It's intended to extend to commuter rail and other services. The other component is that if you don't have contactless cards and things of that nature, the new card that will be available will be sold in convenience stores. They'll be sold in vending machines, and it will enable you to reload and add value to those cards, whether it be at one of our stations in the machines, but also if you do have access, you can do it online. And again, you could buy those cards, you could use a contactless payment, but in the initial time frame, the old method of paying doesn't go away as we transition. We want people to know if you still want to use Charlie card, if you need to use cash, those options will still be available.
I have a few project timeline questions.
Yes.
The first one is the safety testing with the FRA. Is any of that weather dependent? And if it is there any time already built into the schedule that you have?
The testing is really going to operate throughout this period. We run trains in all weather, so the testing is going to be operating in all weather. So, we anticipate, barring some, 100-year storm, we'll be able to operate this whole system and
So
continue.
that's including like maybe snowstorms when we get into the winter months, like December and January?
Yes.
Yes, okay. The other question was, is this an all or nothing type of safety test? In other words, if there's an issue on the New Bedford line, does Fall River continue? If there's vice versa, does one stop before another if there's issues with safety, or is it all together?
Well, it's an iterative process, but we have high confidence that with all of the safety certifications we've done to date and the experience of the team that are here today, for instance, FRA just recently allowed us to do the testing at 79 miles an hour. That is a vote of confidence that we have done all the steps we needed to this point. We're very confident and optimistic that this period that we're showing is deliverable and that we can meet it. And that we will be successful working with FRA. There are always areas where a variance will occur, but we're confident of the team to be able to address those.
All right, and just one more. On the web, there's a lot of talk about communication, so either the website or social media. Are there going to be, when you hit these safety test point goals, whether it be ATC, PTC, or whatever the case may be, will those be put online and potentially maybe put out on social media so that way, as we're seeing the reports today and the updates, we'll know, we can kind of follow along, okay, this one's been checked, that one's been checked, so we feel more confident about that January timeframe?
Yes, one of the reasons we wanted to have a schedule with these dates that's shown is to have milestones for us to report on and to be able to share that information. We will make sure that we communicate it. One of the plans is to come back here in person. Now, I do know that takes time out of your evenings, and we don't want to do that continuously, but we want everyone to know that we're going to make ourselves available much more regularly until we hit that revenue service, because we know how important this service is to all the communities that we serve.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much. Second, is this the MBTA to advocate for good bicycle parking at the stations? Because if we rely on the SRTA, it'll take us 90 minutes to get to the train ride.
Well, I believe one of the key components of our system is first mile, last mile. We know how important bicycles are to that component, and what we need to make sure is that where we have bicycle parking is that it's safe, secure, but we are very cognizant that it's a multimodal world and we need to be supportive of all modes, not only using the vehicle to park and access our stations, but walking, biking, and all other types of modes. So yes, the intention is to have that kind of facilities.
And
Go ahead.
train station I take now is Lakeville, Middleborough, Lakeville. that's going to become distinct afterwards, correct?
That's,
The existing Middleborough Lakeville station. Correct.
Okay, so from New Bedford to the new Middleborough station, obviously, from New Bedford, Middleborough station going into Boston, you're going to be going through Capello, Brockton. Is both trains that's going to leave from Weaver's Cove and Fall River also, are they going to make stops at the stops, or is there going to be like one set going from New Bedford and the other set, or is there going to be different times?
those schedules are being developed. Let me let Ryan talk to that.
Sure, so you did allude to the fact that there's a lot of stations in a very unique service area. And when I think about the uniqueness of that service area, typically the commuter rail is a spoke system, right? So folks come in from the endpoints and they come into Boston. I think Southcoast Rail gives us a real opportunity to look at interzone ridership. And I keep thinking about the educational opportunities available, say, at Bridgewater State University. And I'm very interested to see what ridership trends push us to as far as schedule changes and adjustments. Now, the GM alluded to the fact that commuter rail schedules typically adjust twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. So as the service ramps up, we will continuously evaluate, look at ridership patterns, and listen to the communities and the stakeholders to determine the best stop patterns. And some trains may make every stop. Some trains may do a skip stop, and we're looking at a lot of service options that are going to be unique to the MBTA system, but ultimately to give the South Coast area the best options available.
It is a balance, how many trains make every stop, how many trains skip stops. And we understand when you're coming from further away, less stops are important if you're trying to go the full distance, but also sometimes there is that zone-to-zone travel that people want. So what we need to do is evaluate the ridership patterns and really develop it as we go, as Ryan said, but thank you. I think I saw a question this way.
Again, thank you for joining us. So my main question is, if the rest of the South Coast Rail will be Zone 8, will Middleborough or any other existing stations along the Middleborough line to Boston retroactively change to Zone 7 since Middleborough is now so far away from New Bedford? Will it stay Zone 8 or will that change to Zone 6 or Zone 7?
Right now, I believe when the team looked at the existing space, it still remains Zone 8. We could certainly take that into account and look back, but you know, the importance of trying to keep it consistent as we identify zones is when you make an adjustment to one, then you need to look at everything else within that same kind of distance. So it is really one that it's not just a one station review, it needs to be a review of all of our system, but we'll take that back. You have the mic? Thank you.
I'd like to go back. Paul asked a question, and I don't think I heard an answer to it. He asked if one part of the track doesn't pass the test, will the other track still work if it does pass the test? And I'm not quite sure I got an answer.
Well, what we are working on, and we are getting the testing done as the whole system. You know, one of the discussions we had before even coming forward with this schedule is, are there opportunities to certify portions of the system and then open up service sooner? But we also realize that while one system may be certified sooner, it impacts the schedule of the other one and delays the whole project longer. So this whole testing will be for the whole system. If there's an issue on one, we will address it. We're confident that we will be able to deliver this system in the timeline that we've laid out. So if there is an issue on one, we will fix it, and what I'm saying is, this schedule is what we're adhering to for both.
So it will be delayed if one part isn't
No,
ready?
what I'm saying is if there is a variance that needs to be addressed, this team will tackle it, and then we will deliver this project.
Will the testing that's planned affect the current service at, say, Middleborough, which is what people now in Bedford rely on?
No. No, the testing is set up in a manner that allows for our existing service to be operated as it is.
I wanted to follow up on the bicycle question, but I'm also thanking you for this delay because I am I'm going to ride the train just after my 65th birthday at half price. So I understand that you can also take your bicycle on the train because obviously I work in Harvard Square. So I'm thinking in the summer months that I can bike to the station, take my bike on the train, and I'm wondering about that because I think I've seen people with their bicycles on the other trains and wondering if we'll also be able to do that. And conversely, whether people might take the train down to New Bedford to ride on the beautiful paths that we have here.
So I can let Ryan take that, but I believe if it's a foldable bike, you could take it on our system anytime. But during peak times, we actually prohibit bikes. I know during COVID, we relaxed it. We relaxed it in a lot of properties, including where I was previously at Long Island Railroad. But I don't know if there's any corrections to what I just said, Ryan.
No, I think you're spot on. Obviously, it's bicycles on board the train are a first come, first served basis. We have limited space where we can accommodate a bike, or in particular larger e-bikes and even folding scooters do take up space. Your point about folks coming, say, from Boston down to New Bedford. One thing we did see on the bulk of the commuter rail system was a very strong return to ridership following COVID on weekends. And I could easily see that being an attractive destination, as we've seen on other lines where folks reverse their commute, right? It's no longer a commute, it's a viable way to get around the Commonwealth.
And actually, with the railroad's implementation of the $10 weekend pass allows you to use our system the whole weekend, and now we expanded it if it's a 3-day weekend. $10 for riding the system is a very good deal, and we've seen very strong ridership on weekends, which is particularly why a lot of the ridership has returned. And it's not just going to and from work anymore, it is really using the system for other things. So biking is certainly the thing, and enjoying the nature. And I know we're indoors right now, but when you have beautiful weather, you should all take advantage of it. I think I saw hands over here. There you go.
Have you done any modeling to predict how many passengers you'll have on a daily basis? And do you have some sense of how many cars that takes off the central artery during the commute, or how much faster it'll be to drive from Fall River, New Bedford into Boston?
I don't have the specifics on me with regards to the estimated ridership. Do you have it, Jean?
We do a ridership study, and what we're doing is, with the existing service that goes out of Middleborough Lakeville, we're adding 1,610 riders, so 3,200 a day-ish. I can't address the how many vehicles, single occupancy vehicles that is, but I know that we did have a statistic for what that does to greenhouse gas emissions, and it was significant. I just don't know the number.
Thank you so much for setting up this meeting and for all the information. I was curious if you had any information about the pedestrian bridge and the progress on that.
You want to give it, Karen?
So if you live here, so you'll see it, right? The pedestrian bridge is coming along. I don't want to give a date, but I'm told that it's coming probably in the spring as well next year. I was in a meeting the other day, and there was a discussion about, and again, I don't have all the history that you all do, but there was a discussion about the timing of the service opening and the bridge opening. And I know there's interest in opening that bridge as soon as it can possibly be opened, and that really is our goal.
What we can do is we'll make sure at the next meeting we'll come back with more specifics on that pedestrian bridge.
My question is, I know that basically there's a year delay from the last projection. I was just wondering, like, I know we changed the theme. What came up? Like, why was it delay? I know, was it because of the theme, that's why we changed it? Or was it new regulation from the federal government? I really don't know. Maybe somebody else knows, but I don't know. I'm just curious to find out why the delay happened.
Well, I mentioned earlier this year, project team was giving some updates. There were some key components that were tied to being able to move into these different phases that as we asked questions of the team and tied to the schedule, we saw that there wasn't exactly matching up. There are areas of the signal installations, there's areas with the track work, and maybe it was at the previous meeting, I don't know if it was this meeting that I said it, But then the management team, Sam, Ryan, others visited the site to kind of do that confirmation of what the project team was explaining. At that point, I made the decision that not only are we moving into operations, but I needed a new project lead. Karen Anton is that project lead. And what we're doing now is we're having regular meetings, contractors, subcontractors, and all the folks involved coming in with updates. This schedule was put together with all of them in the room, making sure that there's nothing that's being missed this time. And we really put hard to make sure that every aspect and every step that needs to deliver this project was put into this schedule. And I think one of the things that was lacking in the earlier schedules that we needed more details on certain components that just weren't quite where they needed to be. I know that doesn't answer everything, but one of the things is as I dive into capital project delivery, working with Sam Zhao, who's in charge of that now, is having the project teams, not only on this one, but others, start to give updates so we could help solve problems earlier. And that's really just change in management style, change in structure, but holding ourselves more accountable as we go forward. So hope that answers a little bit.
So I did have one more question also about the bikes. I take the Kingston line 4 days a week, and I just recently bought a bike. I've noticed a lot of bikes on the train. And one interesting thing I find is that on the Old Colony lines, Middleborough, Lakeville, Kingston, and the Greenbush lines, that bikes are allowed all day. And I imagine that's due to the all-door boarding and full high-level platforms. So if bikes become excessively popular, will you, in the future, look into converting some of your old single-level coaches into pure bike cars for some of the Southcoast Rail or even some of the Old Colony Line concepts or train sets?
I will say we're always trying to be flexible with modes of travel. One of the things, though, is that we do need to make sure that if we allow bikes to be used on every train and during all hours, is that it doesn't impede with other riders that don't have bikes. But also, I talked a lot about safety, the safety of the passengers on the train and bikes, whether they need to make sure that we have clear access onto the trains and off the trains. So those are the things we'll have to evaluate. I don't know if there's anything more you want to ask about in terms of longer term, bike cars, but right now that's not in the current plan.
So on some parts of the existing commuter rail system, we do dedicate bike coaches, particularly in the summertime. The Cape Flyer service has a dedicated bike coach, and service along the eastern route to Newburyport, Rockport also has a dedicated bike coach on weekends, just to support bicycle riding in those areas due to the extensive bike lane networks that exist. As ridership and the service grows here in the South Coast, another factor that we're going to evaluate as the service builds.
Thank you. Cliff Richmond from the Massachusetts Sierra Club. Glad to see the emphasis on multimodal travel. And New Bedford being a port city, I hope there'll be integration with the C Street service and continuation onto the Vineyard. Right now, there's no way to do that via mass transit, but this will open up that door, which I think is good. The second question I have or comment is the Middleborough Lakeville line. If you go back to the map, that line is still going to be there, but there's going to be 2 stations in Middleborough. You don't show the other station on there. To put in a plug, I know you won't be able to answer this tonight, but for service to Bourne, so that will add value to that line as well.
So the existing Middleborough Lakeville station today will still see seasonal use during the summer months for the Cape Flyer service, but we have every intention of protecting that asset for the possibilities of future reactivation.
Can we get a bus to Middleborough while we wait the whole year for the train?
The question is whether we can get a bus.
Bus from here to Middleborough Lakeville Station while we wait for the train, is what she said.
I don't know if we have that capacity. Right now, one of the things that we do is if we don't have, we can work with regional transit authorities to see if there's opportunities to partner. But right now, that's not something that we've considered. I'll take that back and we'll look at it. Thank you.
One additional question, as the young lady mentioned about other modes of transportation. A while back, I want to say maybe 3 to 6 months ago, the Southeastern Regional Transit Authority, SERTA, had a public meeting in which they tried to establish a bus run on what was going to be done. Do they work in concert with you, or do we have to go to them? Because the results of that have never been published. And one of the questions I had was that the bus route that they proposed had a drop-off station at the Church Street station, which is great for me. I have 3 streets up the road from it. Right? The bus drop that they had was on Church Street itself. My query to them was, would they be allowed to have that public transportation mode, drive into the parking lot, which is rather extensive. The platform itself is quite a ways from the street, especially if you're dealing with handicapped riders. So my question is, have you continued to work in concert with CERTA, and has that bus route been established? And if not, will there be further public meetings, or will we be advised of what the outcome is going to be? Because we haven't heard a thing yet.
You want to take it, Gene?
Certainly. We have worked extensively with SRTA and with GATRA. And what they wanted to hear, I believe they got grant funding for it, is separate service to certain stations that would go into the stations, to your point. And they would be smaller, microtransit, kind of what it is. So they're working diligently on putting that together. They've asked for the schedule information. They've been working very closely with us on that. However, whatever service they do implement is directly with them, and they will have public meetings on it. So Eric Russo has been dynamite about trying to work with us, making sure that he can serve all our stations.
One of the things, because we know last mile, first mile trip, is not everyone owns a car to get to stations, is an important connection. Where we can connect with other services, regional transit authorities, where we can match schedules is certainly always the goal. And obviously, if there's an opportunity to allow the bus to come into the station, we will partner with those facilities to do that. Certain areas don't have the geographic ability, but where we can, we do allow buses into our stations.
Do you have a plan moving forward? I mean, we've dealt with a ton of delays. MBTA spending, what, another $140 million on trains in Boston on the subway system. Do you have a plan moving forward now that we've seen another delay of actually holding people accountable with further delays and issues with construction and issues with supply?
So, with this project, the project actually remains on its budget. The dollars are, we do not need extra dollars to deliver this project. With regards to holding people accountable, we did make a change in our own leadership team, but also the supporting leadership team that we have under us with the external consultants supporting us. We have made changes there. We've streamlined the support group, but we've also rearranged how that is serving us. Not just this project, but as we look at other projects, we are going to be starting to identify how we best deliver these projects in a different way, and that's making sure that we have the right resources, the right skills, but then we establish early on in our projects the right scoping, the right planning, and then delivery of that. I think one of the things that maybe not like this, but we've talked about the track program that's been ongoing. The amount of work that we've been doing in our system on the subways far exceeds what we've done in the past. It's a way of better holding ourselves accountable, holding those doing work for us accountable, but it's also the collaboration of having the MBTA, our operating folks, with the capital side working together. So there's a lot more to follow on how we improve, but yes, absolutely holding ourselves accountable to setting schedules and meeting schedules is what we're looking to do.
Thank you. I just have a comment. I think people are frustrated and it seems like this is taking forever, but I want to congratulate you for taking on this task of trying to tackle the transportation problems in this state. Nobody has been willing to be as forthright and communicating with the public. As frustrated as people are, this gentleman's only been in the job a year, and I personally want to thank you for being here and appreciate everything that you've done to try to make this a reality for all of us. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I have a great team, I do. And thank you for your patience. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. We will be back soon with an update, and I look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Thank you.